Welcome back, Mistakes listeners. This is episode 57, and we record this episode on February 15th, 2016. This week we watched a show called Tumble Leaf on Amazon Prime. And as always, we have our different observations back and forth. You can follow us on Twitter at Parent Mistakes. You can like us on Facebook at Parenting Mistakes. You can also email us directly with any sort of feedback, suggestions, something you'd like to watch at parentingmistakes@hotmail.com. And as always, sit back and enjoy the show. So, Todd, it occurred to me that, listening to NPR, as I do, shame on me, I know, but I do.
Why is that shame?
I don't know. Some people like it, some people don't, right?
NPR's got some good stuff.
Yeah, I love just talk radio in general. So, I listen to NPR, I listen to Rush Limbaugh, I listen to Art Bell, I listen to it all, right? I got a number of podcasts I listen to. I like it. I like all point of views. As extreme as they are, they're extremely entertaining.
And you listen to Parenting Mistakes.
And I listen to us from time to time because, well, who else is? Ha ha! Just kidding.
Oh, that's not nice.
Anyway, so one of the things that I have noticed, even on the internet, so like when Wiki's doing their week, they usually give you a reason as to why they are fundraising.
Okay.
And I don't think we've done a really good job of telling our audience why we are on Patreon and what we're fundraising for. Other than, hey, give us money. And I think, honestly, I think we should actually
That's not a good enough reason?
I think we should give people some explanation as to what we're trying to do and give them a concrete answer. So, for me, real simply, there is a monthly charge that goes along with producing this show and putting it up on the internet.
Correct.
And getting the kind of bandwidth that we need.
Yes.
And so to do that, we, at this point, are basically kind of putting our own dollars into this investment.
Yes.
Which is great and all, but at the same time, we'd like to get bigger, we'd like to expand, and we'd like to see some of those, fees that are out there be kind of put to the side so that we can invest in other things.
We're trying to cover our overhead to start.
Thank you. Because I think you've got some business in you, don't you?
A little bit.
Yeah. You have more business in you than I do. So my background is art. I literally, when I say BA, Bachelor's of Arts, I actually was a Bachelor of Arts. Like,
yes.
I studied.
I know you were.
Yeah. Well, not everybody knows, I studied art, and I have a minor in art history. It was not in business theory.
Well, it's not business theory. It's more like business administration.
See, you know more.
Business,
You know more than I do.
Which I studied.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, Todd, why are we fundraising? Why are we trying to gather some dollars?
Well, part of it is we enjoy doing this. We feel like we are providing a service to parents out there who have to make some tough decisions about media, and we have other responsibilities in our lives.
Oh, that's true.
Namely, our kids and our spouses. And so for us to be able to focus on this and maybe set other things aside, it is helpful for us to be able to have some good reasons to keep doing it.
Yeah, actually, I love what you're saying right there, and this is the truth of the matter. We actually sacrifice quite a bit of time to do this show, and we would like to be in a position where we can legitimize that sacrifice time. If that makes sense.
So are you just trying to carefully tell the audience that, we want to make our wives happy?
I think that is actually a great motivation, and it's the truth. Because, it takes a lot of work to put the show up here, and it actually takes a lot of our own personal time, and there's a lot of sacrifice involved.
This is true.
And at this point, our families, I am never going to say they suffer because of this, because if they did, we'd be done with the show in a heartbeat.
That is true.
But it is taking us away from the things that we love to do and like, other than we do like doing the show, but it does take away from family time and home time and or work time to actually put the show up. So to come back with a monetary answer, is that even right?
A monetary answer, yes.
A monetary answer to what we're doing would be awesome.
And if we had to stop, then what we were providing here would just sort of float away into the winds like a leaf that is blown on the breeze.
Oh, that was nicely said. It still sounds like a threat.
Does it? So if you have not listened to our podcast before, I have a habit of trying to force non-awkward segues between our intro conversation and the show that we watched that time.
Yes!
So.
And usually, I don't understand when Todd's doing his segue.
That's right.
I'm like, oh, he's talking about the show!
Yeah, I've done this to Dave too many times.
Too many times, and I fall for it every time. He's like, why is he talking about? He's talking like the Nissan Leaf, the Nissan Leaf. Why would he talk about that? That's what's going through my mind.
Sucked you in again.
It's a good car, but yes, I get suckered in every time. It's part of why I like doing this show. Anyway, so what?
So we watched.
Well, before that, we are fundraising, and we do have a Patreon account.
We do.
And we would like you to give on Patreon to our cause, and hopefully we've done a better job this time of explaining what you be giving to and what we're trying to accomplish here at Parenting Mistakes.
Correct.
Fair enough?
Oh, actually, too, if I may, if you go to we have so many places people can go, obviously.
Which is true.
Good. If you actually go to our page on Podomatic, you can just give us a donation through PayPal as well.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah. All right, are we done soliciting?
Yes. Absolutely.
Right.
I just wanted to make clear why we were soliciting versus just give us money.
Okay, so we watched Tumble Leaf.
We did.
And just to catch parents up, and I think parents are figuring this out, your options for kids programming is only expanding in some ways. You have your standard television stations, your cable network. We've done a lot of stuff on Netflix, which provides parents with a bevy of options, both old and new stuff.
Yep.
And now both, Netflix and also Amazon are starting to produce their own content rather than just rebroadcasting stuff from TV cable networks.
So a little aside.
Yes.
I told my daughters this last week, I said, this is going to be hard for you to believe, but cartoons, I had to wait every week till Saturday morning to watch the new awesome cartoons for like 3 to 4 hours max on Saturday morning when no adult in their right mind wants to watch TV. That
Correct.
was the time in which we got to watch cartoons. And then as time went on, we got cartoons in the afternoon after school for like 2 hours. But now, what you're saying is, hey, there's a Cartoon Network, which I can't recommend for kids, but there are networks that are completely dedicated to just animated series for children that are 24/7.
Yes.
And there's just you're right. It's just a huge mound of content out there, which is why Todd and I are trying to tackle this stuff because there's so much of it.
So we watched Tumble Leaf, which is on Amazon. You can stream it as part of I don't know I guess you would probably buy it if you weren't an Amazon Prime member. I don't know that for sure.
I don't know
quote
either.
Me on that.
So both Todd and I are Prime members, which means
we're
we have
both Prime
access to
members. Yeah, we like the shipping and all that kind of good stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So this show is about a blue fox, an anthropomorphic blue fox.
Yep.
Blue fox named Fig. This is stop motion, by the way, which was interesting in and of itself.
It's of the Wallace and Gromit pedigree.
And he has, I didn't realize it was a caterpillar. I thought it was a bird of some sort, but it's a caterpillar. He has a sidekick caterpillar friend.
I thought it was a bird too, because it tweets.
It's a cat.
It's like beep, beep, beep.
Okay, well, I'm reading from our research department, Wikipedia.
That's right.
It says it's a caterpillar named Stick.
Maybe
Anyway.
it's changed over time. I don't know. It really feels like a bird, but
it felt like a bird, but apparently it was a caterpillar.
Well, but admittedly, the foxes don't really look like foxes.
Yeah. Anyway, so Fig and his caterpillar friend Stick, they live on a sort of a grounded ship, which is on Tumble Leaf Island.
Right.
And this is like many other shows that in a 22-minute segment you will have two 11-minute sort of encapsulated stories. And as far as we can tell, and again, we switched our format recently where we're watching the pilot, but as far as we can tell, it's the same basic premise every time.
As far as we can tell. I don't think it diverges.
No. So Fig gets up in the morning, a crab walks onto the shore, throws something in this little treasure chest.
Before he gets up, the crab is out there doing things.
Yeah, doing things. It finds something, throws it into this treasure chest. Fig goes down there and says, "Oh, look, there's something new in the chest."
Right.
And that sort of launches him into
an adventure.
Yes. So we watched, this particular adventure was called Shiny Coins. And in this one, he pairs up with another fox named Maple. And they sort of go off on this little adventure. They find in the treasure chest a coin. Actually, a bag of coins. And they decide they're going to go off to this wishing fountain. And along the way, they discover that these coins will reflect light, and then they use it as a way to get back home, and there you go. And we're back in 11 minutes.
Yes.
So it has sort of a feel of Blue's Clues a little bit. And I almost want to say, and I didn't watch this very much, I've seen bits and pieces of it, but it's almost got a little bit of a Teletubbies type of thing, too.
You know, that's funny that you mentioned that. I had the same vibe as well.
In that it feels like it's targeted to fairly young kids.
Right.
Because you have a number of, and in addition to the two foxes that we're introduced to, and I imagine I know there are other characters, we're also introduced to a number of chickens that are somehow on the deck of this ship cooking.
Well, no, they have breakfast, right? No,
Right.
so they're all in a shipwreck. It's a shipwreck that's shipwrecked on this island, and the chickens actually are on the front of the boat, and before they go off on their adventure, whatever that might be for that day, they're given breakfast.
Right. And the chickens seem to be the cooking staff.
Yes, correct.
There's also bits and pieces of, and I don't know if your kids ever watched this, but my kids, we had like one of these videos, I think, but there's a little bit of almost a Baby Einstein vibe to it as well, in that you sort of have these characters, some of whom don't really speak, they just sort of make these little sounds and sort of move around, and they're kind of a little bit of...
Such as the caterpillar.
Right, sort of little kid, sort of eye candy, as it were. Okay. Your reaction to this?
Yeah, so everything you said is true. It's a rather... The story is rather simple for obvious reasons. I will never know... So one of the things I did, I marveled at the stop motion. I don't think we've reviewed a whole lot of stop motion up until this point.
I don't think we have either.
So whenever I see somebody actually doing it, I wonder how much of it is done with the computer or actually done with somebody's hand where he's actually doing the stop motion. Because some of the dioramas, because it literally is, like some of the set pieces are just really beautiful and elaborate.
Right.
And I had to marvel, like, what? It's sort of like the intro to the Lego movie. You're like, how on earth did they pull this off with all that stuff in the Lego movie? This kind of has that similar vibe in that they're just doing a lot, and it's really kind of cool to look at, and it's interesting, from an adult perspective. Now, from a story standpoint, there's some parts that I had a rough time with that actually kind of frustrated me a little bit. And you know what? For the target audience, I guess who cares? But they basically take this bag of money and they decide that they're going to throw their money into the wishing fountain. Okay?
Yes.
So it's a little bit weird in that now we're going to take something valuable and throw it in the wishing well. Well, that's what kids do. Right?
Correct.
Because they're going to make wishes and stuff. So they get to the wishing well, and Maple basically says, well, we're going to make a wish, but there's some rules around making a wish. And I hate to get this detailed, but it bugged me. She basically tells the group, hey, if you're going to make a wish, you have to close your eyes the entire time, make your wish, and then you throw the coin in. And she proceeds not to do that. She makes the wish, and her eyes are open and fluttering the entire time. Again, I do not know how hard it is to animate in this style, but it bugged me by the fact that you're telling kids this is how you do it, and then you proceed not to do it. And then the next character gets up to make his wish, and he proceeds to blink and not close his eyes after he's been specifically told that you can only do an effective wish by closing your eyes. And all I can say is that probably the animators and the script designers just didn't see eye to eye, right? It is a niggling little point, and
I was going to say that's a little nitpicky, don't you think?
It is, but it bugged me. I'm like, well, why would you say? If you're a kid kind of watching the show, it doesn't. And this is always a pet peeve for me. The show doesn't follow its own rules. That always bugs me. I'm like, if you're going to set up some rules, then follow your own rules.
Okay.
So then they are out there at the wishing well, and it gets dark because they've been out there for too long, and they get lost.
Well, they don't get lost. It's just they misjudge how much time it's going to take to get back.
Right. And so here's the second one that bugged me. Not once in my entire life. So what they do is they get the coins because they're bright, and they use it as a reflective material off the moon.
Yes.
To make a flashlight.
Correct. Pretty bright one, by the way.
In my entire life, I have never seen a moonbeam reflection light. I'm sorry, it's just not possible.
Oh, come on, suspend your disbelief.
But I'm saying, like,
Mr. Olstein taught us that in high school. Come on.
I guess if this isn't Earth, that's fine, right?
Maybe it's a really bright moon.
It's not even that, Todd. It just wouldn't work. It just wouldn't work. Now, I get magic. I get that they start using clams to use the moonbeam and this, that, and the other thing, but... And it's highly creative, but it's tough. It's tough to swallow as an adult. As a kid, would they completely buy all this stuff? Sure.
Well, and this is a dilemma, again, for parenting, and we've talked about this with a number of shows. We know that when kids watch kids stuff, particularly cartoons, and, you know, if you're going to accept the fact that foxes walk on 2 feet and talk, you can accept that a little bit of light can reflect off a coin and shine on the ground.
Moonlight
That's
reflect
right.
off a coin.
Moonlight, my bad. So you're already suspending your disbelief to allow your kid to watch this at all, as opposed to saying, foxes don't walk on 2 feet and wear ties. That's totally unrealistic.
Yeah.
But, to be fair, I feel like the show is trying to... Because the premise is that Fig is faced with all these challenges.
That's correct.
All these little challenges. And he sort of says... And again, this is where it's a little bit of Blue's Clues, a little bit of Winnie the Pooh, let me sit down in my thinking spot, where he says, all right, here's a challenge. Let's think about this. Let's look at the resources around us. Let's go a little MacGyver. Let's go a little A-Team. And let's come up with a practical solution.
Which isn't practical at all. It's a kid solution,
okay.
Or it's a convenient writing solution.
Fair enough.
This is nothing any kid could ever use in the real world. Well, that's the problem. I'm like, you're setting up this situation that is a totally like, okay, here's the dilemma, and the moral of the story is, if you just come up with any idea you want, you're going to get out of there.
So are you worried
that's my issue, is that whatever idea you have, it's just going to work in your favor, and you're going to get back.
Okay, but what's the message here? The message is, let's sit down and think about our environment and try to come up with a solution. Isn't that the message? Are you worried that kids are going to go home, or they're going to, after they see this show, go outside with their nickels and try to find their way home by shining their coins on the ground, reflecting light off the moon?
No, my concern, and let's go back to the Odd Squad. The Odd Squad's great in that they actually, and I didn't like all the solutions, but all their solutions were logical. It's a good show in that it's all kind of based and grounded in a little bit of science that makes sense.
Right, but that's also a live-action show.
they're both kids shows. They both sit in the same genre, and this is the strength of that show. And I go, it's just a superior show for it. Because they're actually using science in their favor to solve problems. Actual, real science.
But you would agree that, again, as I said before, if you're going to accept a level of suspension of disbelief, just the idea of this show altogether, right?
Mm-hmm. That doesn't follow its own rules. Just want to put that out there as well. Like they have rules and they break them.
Right. Then you can have some leeway with physics and math and sort of the make-believe world. Can you not?
Oh, sure. I totally get this. What I'm saying is, why not ground some of your solutions in some reality versus things that would just never work?
Okay, come on. You could shine a little light off a moonbeam off your coin.
Never.
Come on.
No way. No way. No way.
Okay, I'm going to go outside tonight. At night. I'm going to take a quarter with me. You watch. I'm going to find.
You're going to take a little coin, and I would. Sounds like a MythBusters thing. Could you
Maybe
actually?
It's a highly reflective surface.
I'm sure. And if I'm close enough to the moon, I can reflect something, right? Get up in a rocket ship or whatever. But
this feels a little bit again like a puppet show to me. You got a couple foxes. To your point, what's the plot? Hey, look, I got some coins. I'm going to bring them to the fountain, and then we're going to walk home. And we're going to try to find our way.
And the highlight of the show is they basically manipulate a lot of clams, giant clams, to laugh.
Right.
And then when they laugh, they're inside. Now, here's the thing. Oysters have a shiny inside. Right? Clams, not necessarily. Oysters do. Oysters have a real shiny inside. But do clams have, like, really shiny, reflective insides?
I don't know.
Not a single butter clam I ever ate had a shiny inside. Now, really? Giant clams, I don't know much about. But these look like giant butter clams.
This is the direction the show has gone.
I'm just saying, dude. It just... I have to sit there and watch it, and I have to evaluate it for my kid, and I'm like, I wish that the solutions were better than what they're offering. Or at least say, on our planet, the moon is so bright that we can use reflective surfaces to do this. Our clams, but the assumption is they're living on our planet, I'm assuming.
You sound like a cynical adult. You know that, right? We have to let some of this stuff go.
Oh,
we have to let some of it go.
Okay.
The fox is wearing a vest and a tie.
And he's got what looks like to be a bird, but it's not a bird, it's a caterpillar.
Right, and he's strapped to. He's got a barrel strapped to his arm. That's
Speaking of which, I've never heard a caterpillar with an audible sound. Beep 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 beep. Because that's the sounds the caterpillars make. How about this? Did I like the show? Yes. It's actually a beautiful artistic show. But I can't really say that if it sits in the education, like they're basically saying it's education, then I would have to say no, it's not. It's just fluff. It's whatever the writers deem necessary. And I think the writers are not going for that. I think they actually want children to struggle with the things that are happening to our characters in that show. Unfortunately, their solutions are just not good.
Well, if we're going to go nitpicky, can I tell you my nitpicky?
Go ahead.
So the fox's eyes, the placement of their eyes versus their nose and mouth bugged me.
I don't know. This show, I tell you,
okay,
dude.
But you know what I'm talking about?
Sure.
I'm used to, folks, you can't see this because it's a podcast, but I'm looking at Dave right now. And as I would look at normal person, whatever. And if we're going to go anthropomorphic, we got to take the nose and put it a little below the eyes.
Right.
On the face. If that's where we're going to go. In this particular show, that nose and mouth is just dead center between the two eyes.
Yep.
It's very weird. It's almost like they said, let's take a real animal the way it is with their eyes on the side and a snout and on the same thing, but then let's like just transpose that to a big round flat face.
It's the style of the show. It's just the
suppose.
style of the show, right?
I suppose. But that creeped me out a little bit because it was goofy.
Well, and not only that, but do you ever give your kids a sack of money to say, go down to the public fountain and just throw as much as you want in?
No,
Yeah.
I don't. I give them a coin. My wife would give them a coin out of her purse, and probably a penny.
So here is one of the main threads of the show, right? They make all these wishes, and I think at the end, near the end of the show, they basically say, our wish came true, we got home. But they didn't make that wish. I guess you never understood what their wish was.
Correct.
Their wish, they never explained their wishes, but at the end of the episode, conveniently they say, our wish came true, we got home. What kid
Correct.
wishes for...
They're just trying to keep the kids sort of grounded in sort of a bubble.
How
here.
dare you say grounded?
Yeah,
It's not grounded.
Well, but keep in mind, again, what we've seen in this show, and this is, again, a question of how big do you want to make your kid's universe right off the bat? Because think about the premise of this show. You've got a fox that lives on a shipwrecked.
He lives in a shipwreck. There's
Yeah.
a crab that randomly picks things off the beach because he's a beachcomber and puts it in his
Right.
treasure chest. All
And
that is fine. I actually
Yeah,
like
well,
that. I
but-
thought that was creative.
Right. They've kept his world very small. He's going to stay on this ship. He's going to do a little adventure around it, and then he's going to go back home.
Yep.
And that, I think there is a safety and consistency for a kid, where we're not going to get that ship back out on the water. We're not going to launch him into space. We're not going to take him to a different world. Maybe they will later in the show. I don't know. But it feels like they're going to sort of just keep doing this loop. Where
No,
they keep,
I'd say that, and here's the thing. The show is highly creative, right, as for what they're doing. It just needs some tightening up. The other thing that I didn't feel about the show was I didn't feel like I'm going to go to Target and see a smattering of this stuff. This clearly
Perhaps
looked like
not.
this is just like strictly kind of like creative entertainment for kids. I just think it could have been stronger. That's my pet peeve with it. Like, you could have just written this a lot stronger, really stuck to some of the rules that you set up, and really give kids a logical solution versus some of the weird solutions that they came up with. I don't know. Or at least just make the solution a little bit more consistent.
I think you're being too hard on it.
I think you're probably right. I mean, again,
But that's okay.
if you found your kid watching this show, I would not say, "Oh, stop what you're doing, hold the bus, don't watch that show." I'm being nitpicky because I think there is a creative potential there to have a lot of cool things happen.
There you go.
I think the show could do way more, and my guess is it probably does
Maybe.
because we only watched the pilot.
Well, you can follow us on Twitter. Follow us like a blustery tumbleweed. Tumble-leaf. You can like us on Facebook. You can like all the things that we say. You can send us an email with all the things that you don't like about our show. All
That's
the
right.
nitpicky
Like, you can
things,
get really nitpicky
things
with
that I
us.
said, all the mistakes that we made as podcasters. You can send that to parentingmistakes@hotmail.com, or you can support us financially on Patreon, or you can make a donation through PayPal on our Podomatic site.
That's true.
So there you go. It's time for us to blow out of here.